some thick mucus. Okay, and this thick mucus can somehow block or increase the difficulties for the sperms to get in later. Okay, so girls can observe their ovulation at this moment. They will see some mucus secretion at that time. Okay, and okay, back to here. So after the first day of the menstruation, only one follicle continued to grow and become fully mature Gravian follicle. So normally there should be only one egg. You don't know whether it is your left ovary or your right ovary to secreting, to releasing the egg. That means ovulation. But there is only one. Of course, sometimes there can be some accident that the eggs are produced or released from both ovaries at the same time. Okay? But the chance is low. So only one is going to grow. Why we only want one follicle to grow? Because we just want to focus the nutrients, to concentrate the nutrient, to supply this only one oocyte. Okay. And then other secondary follicles, they following and then continue to grow and then develop until only one of them has been selected. Then other secondary follicles will become atrectic. Atrectic means apoptosis, or degeneration. So we describe these follicles as follicle atresia. Okay. So the Gravian follicle grows large, form a bulge on the surface of the ovary, so that's why they can just burst out. So what asks them to burst out? That is LH stimulation, the luteinizing hormone. Okay, so once being stimulated by LH, they will just do the action to get to the wall of the ovary and then to rupture it and let the ovary to be released. And again, this released cell is secondary oocyte. Okay, and it is being protected by the zona pellucida and corona radiata. So only fertilization occurs and the oocyte can complete the second meiotic division. Another thing is, after ovulation, the follicles will become another thing that is called corpus luteum, yellow body, because they are in yellow color, okay, in real situation. So they're called yellow body. And then the empty follicle under influence of LH will turn into this corpus luteum, and this corpus luteum, the function is secretes the estrogen and progesterone. We'll talk about that later. If there is no fertilization, corpus luteum will just regress at the end to become the corpus albicans and then be degenerated at the end, okay, reabsorbed by the ovary. Okay, so far, any question you want to ask? Okay. Okay, if not, then let's continue. So menstrual cycle, because menstrual cycle typically, so this is all the theoretical writing, typically 28 days. Some girls will have, very few girls will have shorter than 28 days, but quite a lot of girls will have longer menstrual cycles. Okay, they can have 30 days, 35 days, 40 days. For some girls, if they have some hormonal secretion problem, they may even have very long or irregulated menstrual cycle. Sometimes it can be 28 days and then suddenly it becomes 90 days, something like that. So if girls, you have any such kind of not symptom but phenomenon, but situation, you have to be careful. Okay, you have to be careful in many ways. And also, what I want to say. Yeah, I will leave it later. So we'll call the first day of menstruation day 1. So this is how they call it. But actually, there's no day 1 and day 28, something like that. Because just like egg and chicken, you never know which one comes first. Okay, but for easier calculation, we'll just say the first day of the menstruation is day 1. And then inside the menstrual cycle, we have 3 phases: the follicular phase, the ovulation, and luteal phase. So again, we have to look at this graph. 3 types of the 3 things you have to look at. So gonadotropic hormone levels. This is the hormones releasing from the brain, from the pituitary gland, or from the hypothalamus. Okay, so this is the gonadotropic hormone levels from the brain levels. And this one, the follicle stages, just show you how the follicles is going to be developed during under the different hormone secretion. And then lastly here, ovarian hormones level, that is talking about the cells inside the ovary secreting these hormones, okay, not the brain. But then they are closely related. So let's look at it one by one. Follicular phase. So lasts from the day 1 to about day 13. So you may ask, but this is the but is during the menstruation, why we still saying that from day 1 to day 13, we still say this is a follicular phase? Because menstruation is the process that you just get rid of those tissues from your uterus. At the same time, in your ovary, they're still working. They have to reboot the system, let the follicle continues to grow and prepare for next cycle to be reached. So that's why last from day 1 to day 13. We say that this is follicular phase. So some primary follicles will grow and develop the vesicles and become the secondary follicles. And then near the end of this phase, stimulated by the FSH, one follicle in one ovary reach the maturity, become the Gravian follicle. So this one is the Gravian follicle by the effect of the FSH. And these Gravian follicle, again, inside you can find the granulosa cells, and these cells will just secrete the estrogen. Okay, so that's why you can see the granulosa cells, they are secreting the estrogen, so the estrogen level just go up continuously. And then we find that it reached the highest concentration just 2 days before ovulation. Okay, so this is the very beginning, before ovulation happens. So what kind of the changes of these hormones inside the follicular phase? You can see the FSH being secreted by the brain, which is the anterior pituitary gland, okay? Secreted, not produced. They just secreted. And they will stimulate the production of FSH receptors in granulosa cell. This is important to know is every time when the hormones is being secreted or produced, secreted more precise, being secreted, no matter it is from a brain or from anywhere, the cells that is going to receive these hormones, they have to present the receptors. Okay, and then for the granulosa cells inside the follicles, because FSH has been secreted, therefore the receptors will be presented now. So more FSH receptors will be present on the granular cells. The follicles become more sensitive to FSH. This is because you have more receptor, of course, more sensitive to FSH. At the same time, not only the FSH alone trigger the receptors presenting, we also find that the estrogen production from the granulosa cells also stimulates the production of FSH receptors in the follicles. Okay, so both things work together. The FSH from brain, the estrogen from the granulosa cells in the follicles, both of them would just trigger to stimulate more production of FSH receptors in the follicle. More precisely is on the granulosa cells. Okay, so at the end, you will find out, oh, there will be a lot of FSH receptors in the follicles already. That means even though there's no production, let's say, even though now the FSH secretion stop, there is still some FSH in the blood, right? When they go through the follicles, these follicles can still working because of the FSH receptors presenting already. Okay, so this is what it means. So toward the end of the follicular phase, FSH and estrogen also stimulate the production of LH receptors in Gravian follicle. So you can see the FSH production, the estrogen at peak, they just trigger the LH to be produced. But before that, the LH receptors on the Gravian follicle will also be increased to receive the hormone. So at the end, the rapid rise in the estrogen secretion from the granulosa cells will act on the hypothalamus, that means the brain, to increase the frequency of the gonadotropic releasing hormone pulses. That means usually maybe they just pump the releasing hormone every day, only 10 times, let's say, okay, only 10 times. But then when it reach to near to the ovulation time, you can see that the green line is the GnRH. The frequency pulse has been increased